If I stuck a little bit, apologize, but I'll just go with the flow. Is it cool?
It's cool.
Awesome.
Let's do it. All right. So,
Cool. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. This is episode 3, Ikigai live chat. So, I have a very special guest from Victoria, Nicholas Kemp. Thank you so much, Nick-san, for being here with me and us today.
thank you,
And
Mayumi-san. Joy.
どういたしまして。はい。
Thank you.
Well, before I want Nick to introduce himself from him, but a quick introduction about myself, who I am. So my name is Mayumi, or you can call me May. So I'm a qualified naturopath. I was born in Japan and been in Australia for, oh my gosh, 25 years now.
Wow.
Crazy, man. So sometimes I call myself Jazzy.
Jesse.
Japanese,
Okay. That's good.
Japanese and Aussie, Jazzy. Actually,
Mm,
people laugh when I say that.
Jesse.
Anyway, so I'm a qualified naturopath, love for natural medicine, also founder of Ikigai Live the Life List group. And how my fascination of the Ikigai evolved over the last few years. So first it started off in 2019. My partner bought me a book at the Cairns airport on the way to the New York. And that's first Ikigai fascination, even though I knew the word.
Mm.
And then that led to my fascination and curiosity, led to connection with somebody like Nick, wonderful and amazing human being. And Nick's gonna talk about his actually contribution, his what he does in his business to spread the Ikigai concept. So we hear from him. But one of the actually the also the podcasts and the resources that came across from the Nick website podcast. I think you did the podcast with the Professor Hasegawa Akihiro.
First
And
episode.
yes, and one of the quotation that resonate me so much nowadays, and I just wanted to share with you all here. So he quoted as Ikigai can be defined as the feeling of being alive now and individual motivation for living.
Mm.
I think that's kind of spot on at the moment. Feeling alive is important.
Yes, yes.
So without further ado, Nick, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you again for having me, Mayumi-san. So, how do I introduce myself? Well, I guess I'll start off with the basics. I'm Australian. I live in Melbourne. I'm a father, a husband. So I have a lovely, adorable, curious, smart, handsome, inquisitive, kind of funny son who's 20, which is very hard to believe. And I have a lovely, inspiring, curious, also very curious, crafty wife who's happens to be Japanese. And we've been married for over 20 years. And I guess I have this connection to Japan, which started, believe it or not, in 1977 when I was 5. And I went I mean, I didn't really go on a trip. My father was a researcher. He worked for CSIRO, so essentially the government, and he was doing some research. And he was asked to go and share it um, in several countries. So he got all this money to do that and purchased a round trip ticket. And one of the locations was Tokyo, Japan. And so that was when I was 5. Um, and I have some vague memories of that trip. And then when I was in my early 20s, I was in hospitality, and there were a lot of Japanese coming to Melbourne. And I was studying hospitality, and I saw this opportunity to be a trainee chef in Japan. So I applied, and I managed to get it with 3 other Australians, and then spent a year in Tokyo, and that was in 1995. And then that happened, and we came back, and there were all these complications for this company to open restaurants in Melbourne, and I realized I don't even want to be in hospitality. It's long hours and stress. I want to go back to Japan. So I went back to Japan to teach English. And after my first week of training, I went to my school, and on the first day, I was having a conversation with a Japanese coworker and just sort of getting to know them. And she asked me what my ikigai was. In Japanese. I was trying to show off my Japanese. And I was amazed, like, oh wow, you have this word that articulates all that, like purpose and the reason why I keep on living, and meaning and motivation. And yeah, I was like, wow. And I went back to the teacher's room, and I was asking all these foreign teachers, hey, do you know this word ikigai? And they're going, no. And I remember thinking, oh, I've got to go and talk to this coworker again the next day. And I was walking into work thinking, this will be like the first thing I ask her when I get into the office. And she'd been transferred. And I was really disappointed. And then, yeah, I kind of went on with life. And oddly, I didn't really hear anyone talk about Ikigai again in Japan because, as you would know, most Japanese don't really talk about Ikigai that much. Yeah. It's something more private and personal. And then, yeah, 20 years later, I start seeing the Venn diagram, the best-selling book, all these TED Talks. And I was thinking, I remember that word, but don't remember a Venn diagram, or I don't remember it being a word from Okinawa or the secret to happiness. So I kind of realized, oh, wow, all the stuff on Ikigai is very romanticized, or it's been appropriated. And I just thought that was strange. And to cut a long story short, after a few years, I thought, this is wrong. Someone should do something about it. So I thought, oh, eventually I convinced myself, well, maybe I could, because I really didn't know what Ikigai was. And that's when the podcast started. And so from the podcast, obviously, this whole amazing business grew. And so now, yeah, I have this incredibly close connection to Japan again through the work that I do on Ikigai. And that's really just been this journey of learning about it and then sharing it with others.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Yeah, I definitely encourage people to go on your podcast because even before you actually join in the group, I actually found you before. It's interesting. And when I actually, because I'm the, admin of the group, Nicholas Kemp, profile, Ikigai Tribe. I think I listened to his podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was quite impressed with the content of the podcast. I do remember I jotted down a few things. There was a lady from Japan. She's in corporate. I think I can't remember the name, but
Okay.
yeah, it was a great content. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I've had
mm,
many great episodes, including yourself. So you've been a guest on the podcast too. So don't forget yourself. Yeah.
thank you. That was fun.
So yeah, I'm very lucky. I have these wonderful conversations.
Yeah,
Uh,
you got you even interview with the Mark, also the Venn diagram, the who
Mark
actually
Wynn,
created
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah,
So I wanted to approach it all. So I thought it'd be helpful to think, oh, how did Ikigai get misunderstood? And
yeah.
I mean, that Venn diagram's inspiring and it's helpful, and it's had many iterations. So it's very hard to say this person made it. But I think the one that's used as the Western Ikigai was created by Andres Zuzunaga, who I also interviewed. But I mean, I guess my point would be it's just not Ikigai. So that's a very Western approach. And I think you'd agree that Ikigai has really nothing to do with money. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. And
if you talk about authenticity of
mm,
Ikigai, money is not probably the essential component. When I
Yeah.
look at the diagram, I say, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, you're
Mm.
right. That's not something I would probably thought about straight away, think about straight away.
And I mean, you don't even have to be good at it. If you like singing and you're a bad singer, if you still enjoy singing and it's your ikigai,
Yeah,
or it
exactly. Yeah,
can be
yeah,
something you're learning. Like often our ikigai is something new that we start learning. We have this passion to
yeah,
learn a sport or a musical instrument or, Japanese. And so you go on that journey. So it's more about growth or life satisfaction,
yeah.
things we'll
Yeah, I
probably talk
actually love
about.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, life satisfaction. I picked up from you as well. Yeah, that was a
Mm.
great description of Ikigai when you mention it, when you actually helped me with the Ikigai challenge a few months ago. And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
talked about Yutori, that was amazing. And that's kind of led to the question, if that's okay with you, Nick.
yeah, yeah,
And you have such a great lineup of the podcast. And like even Ken Mogi, for example, I thought,
yeah, yeah,
Mogi, that's amazing. I actually read his book.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
a
Ken's
neuroscientist, Tokyo
yeah.
University, am I right?
Yeah, Ken's a man of many hats or many roles. So he is an author, he's a neuroscientist, he works at Sony, one of the Sony labs. I think he's also a headmaster for a one of those correspondence schools.
Yep.
He's always traveling, he's always doing
Keep,
keynotes or lectures. So yeah, I've had him on 3 times actually, and I got to
yeah,
meet him in Japan as well. And I went to one of his university campuses and did a presentation. So that was strange, presenting Ikigai to Ken. So yeah,
amazing. So question
yeah.
to you, what is your driver to contact those amazing human beings? Because if I put myself in your shoes and I thought, oh gosh, Emily, he's amazing. He's gonna respond to me.
Um,
For example, what is the actual driver to connect those people to, create such amazing content through, your podcast, for example? What is the driver?
yeah. Well, the driver was, I mean, also obviously personal curiosity for myself.
Yeah.
And then in a way, I was thinking, oh, someone needs to offer a Japanese perspective. And so the best way to do that would be to interview Japanese, who can speak English. So I didn't know. I mean, it was kind of, I've got to find someone who's willing to come onto the podcast and speak English. And amazingly, it really was Hasegawa, who's got so much courage because his English is very limited. So I'll never forget that he came on, and he's a good friend now, but I felt very courageous of him to come on and share his work. And I think thanks to him, it gave me this opportunity to ask other academics or other Japanese. So it was sort of satisfying my own curiosity, but it was also this desire to almost correct this Western perception, or at least offer a perception that was or is respectful to Japanese culture. And also the research. There's all this research on Ikigai that's probably far more helpful than the Venn diagram. So sharing that. And then I thought, oh, I should interview artists and everyday Japanese and, anyone really, as long as it's aligned to, I guess, these Ikigai values or my own values. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Sounds like a Professor Hasegawa influenced in a positive way, that because he was so courageous,
Yeah.
he gave you inspiration, did he?
Yeah, no, I almost cried when I met him in person because I ended up having drinks with him and I said, oh, I've got to say this. I said, like, thank you so much. And I'm almost sort of crying as I'm thanking him. And I think he
Yeah.
felt that. So yeah, it was like, you've changed my life. Like the podcast turned into this opportunity for me to teach and But it's one of those things. One day I just had this thought, this intuition, start a podcast and just find someone to interview. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. And then I remember buying the domain name, and I just thought, oh, I've got to find Hasegawa's email. So you never know. This one action can really change the course of your life. And now my life is full of ikigai. There's just I see so many opportunities where, 6 years ago I was building websites and just not enjoying my life. But I guess all that knowledge of being able to market and build websites, is helping me now. So that's sort of become an advantage, or just part of my life skills. So, um, but I think having these conversations can really impact you, and you get perspective, and you see life in this Japanese lens. And I think for most people, it can be very beneficial. Mm.
Yeah, I think I'm just having a bit of goosebumps at the moment because, it was when you said it, like, you decided to do the podcast, and the first person was a professional Hasegawa, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
The I don't know, it sounds like to me that was good kind of spark for you, and from there, and you had the courage, you were courageous to make this action, and some of the big names and
yeah, I mean,
well-known people, yeah.
I
Well
guess for Ken,
done.
I mean, I'd seen Ken on another podcast with a foreigner or an American, so I thought, oh, he obviously does podcasts. And maybe I didn't realize how big he is or how famous he is. I mean, I knew he was on panels, and I kind of just thought, I mean, he's still an academic, so he's like this academic celebrity, but he's not like Ken Watanabe or someone,
Yeah, fair
who's
enough.
super famous, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
But
Maybe next list.
maybe I'll ask Ken Watanabe. But but you never know until you ask. And I mean, at the end of the day, Ken's another human being, so he's just got this fascinating brain, and he has this incredible knowledge on everything. So it's always an enjoyable conversation. It's
Yeah.
definitely an enlightening conversation with Ken. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's amazing. And
Mm,
let's lead to the next question. And probably some of the probably the content that you share with us already, it may be part of the question. However, I wanted to ask you this. So how do you define perceive your own version of a ikigai? Even though you have done some great research, interviewing people, inner expertise, and, you
mm.
know, for the last few years, how are you actually perceiving it at the moment?
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely recently been personal growth,
Okay.
but tied to this, it's a feeling. So I think, I'm a big fan of Miyako Kamiya, who I like to call the mother of Ikigai. And she has this clear definition. You have Ikigai sources and you have Ikigai-kan. And your Ikigai sources are people, relationships, hobbies, your work, future goals. And then Ikigai-kan is the feelings associated to those sources. And so I think for me, learning and growth, it just makes me feel alive, because usually I'm learning something related to Ikigai or Japanese culture. And it's just so inspiring to learn something new and then share it with someone or my community. And you have this feeling of growth, like I'm growing, I'm learning as a, I'm still, I can still learn. I'm so motivated to learn now. Today I was like learning about tea ceremony, but I was learning all about the utensils, all the utensil names. And there's like, I mean, tea ceremony is very simplistic and very basic, but there's still like 15 utensils they use. And then there's all this structure and I guess, this type of manners, I guess, in terms of how you enter a tea ceremony, a chashitsu, how you enter a room, how many steps you take. You've got the tokuma, the alcove where you bow. I was thinking, wow, there's all this not complication, but there's all this structure to show respect to tea ceremony. I didn't know. And I didn't know there's tea ceremonies. It's not really the right word, but there's chanoyu, there's tea ceremonies that go for 4 hours.
Yes.
I didn't know that. And then they've got koicha, like this incredibly thick tea you can drink, and you have a whole meal. And I didn't know, I mean, I really didn't know that. So I was like, wow, that's so inspiring. Like this goes beyond what I initially thought. And so you have all this opportunity to learn. And hopefully one day I'll have, don't know if I want to do 4 hours of tea ceremony, but, and then just recently I've started to learn the
Oh,
shakuhachi.
Karachi. Ah, wow, amazing.
So
It's beautiful sound.
it is a beautiful sound. Yeah. So that's what I
Yeah,
mean. There's so much for us to learn about something we find inspiring or fascinating. And for me, that's Japanese culture. Yeah.
yeah. It's actually interesting what you just shared, and the motivation, learning, the personal growth, and share with somebody, right? So that
Yeah.
was actually heard from Tomoko and Gyoko from the last previous
Oh,
episode.
yeah. There you go.
They
Yeah.
actually say they're very similar. So, started off, your personal growth. Think about yourself first. You wanted to, go dive into, what, give you passions, and you want to share that with other people. And I
Mm.
thought, oh, that's it's the, common through the chat. And I'm so glad that I'm doing this with you as well, because I'm also learning from you.
Oh,
I'm not
thank you.
just ending up with my own version of Ikigai, because I'm curious about how Ikigai perceive rest of my life. So
Mm.
that's amazing. And well done, you done the koicha. I started doing koicha practice too with my sensei. So
Oh, nice.
it'll be quite intricate and
Yeah,
complex.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing that there's so much to learn, but there's another way to frame it. It is the study of Ikigai has given me this role. I have a role now where I can pass on this knowledge. So I think also having perhaps a role you want, or maybe even a unique role, yeah, it really gives your life this depth or meaning or a sense of purpose. And I mean, sometimes I think this is crazy. Look, I'm the most unlikely person to be doing this. An Australian. So what's a white Australian guy who's kind of just fun and playful? And I mean, I do take my work very seriously, but I come across as a very friendly, fun guy. So I'm very unlikely to be teaching Japanese culture, but there's obviously a reason. I lived in Japan for 10 years and my wife's Japanese, and I find it fascinating. So this passion project of doing the podcast ended up turning into this role where I'm like, oh, I'm a person now who can be the bridge between, Japanese culture and I guess Western culture. And
Yeah,
yeah,
ambassador. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's
So,
interesting you say that. Yeah, I learned from Italian sensei to do Aikido, and he's from Europe, and then Europe is actually probably the second sort of base of Aikido. Apparently, I didn't know that until he told me how he interpret teaching of Aikido is I would say different,
mm,
because I had a recent experience with the Nidan practitioner who just arrived from Japan. How she was describing about Aikido and how my sensei described Aikido was quite different.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
And it was interesting. I was just literally, I was very curious to hear both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think, ambassador or mediator in a between person, I think it's great role. And well done you doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cool.
you're
So
lucky. I mean, you're lucky in that perhaps because you're away from Japan and you've been away from Japan for so long, you almost have this opportunity to rediscover Japan or the culture. So a lot of Japanese who do end up leaving Japan because they're usually asked by so many people like, oh, I love Japan and tell me about this or tell me about that. They kind of rediscover their own country and then they realize the depth and breadth of Japanese culture. And it's like Australian
yeah,
culture,
yeah.
it's
I think you're right
it's
about that because I had a conversation with my sister and it was quite, passionately talk about tea ceremony or Aikido and then, oh, really? I didn't know that, sis. Did you?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
and like, because, and I'm not the only one in Cairns. I have a huge, great Japanese friends connection in Cairns and, each person have an amazing passion to themselves and then, you know, I start really more appreciating my culture because I'm
Mm,
away from Japan, and I'm so grateful that I was. I mean, not like we are special people, okay? I'm not that way, but I'm just purely that I'm so grateful that I was born in Japan, that I received this kind of culture,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the feel it's Japanese culture is sort of interesting. I think is other culture probably similar, but we don't just perceive like observing. We also different type of senses.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Japanese culture can be a bit vague, but yeah. So thank you. It's amazing share.
No,
So the next question, Nick, that's the last question for you. How would you like to evolve with your ikigai as you are spreading ikigai concept, authentic version of ikigai, like you were
mm,
saying? And what would you like to see or hear or feel in the future? What would you look for?
nice. Well, as
Yeah.
you know, I'm about to do my first retreat to Japan, my Ikigai retreat. So I really want to offer a experiential Ikigai. So obviously I do all this theory and do the podcast and I do my own sort of programs. And I sort of travel the world on Zoom and I really enjoy that. It's been life-changing. But the next step is to you know, do it in Japan and discover Japanese who live their Ikigai because as you know, I mean, I want to be honest, many Japanese don't have Ikigai. They've, like any other country, there's a lot of social problems, loneliness. But then, of course, there are many Japanese who probably, they're not probably thinking, oh, this is my Ikigai, but they do live a life of Ikigai. We're having a shakuhachi player from my retreat,
Oh my God.
and we talked
Oh,
about
no.
Ikigai, and yeah, he definitely said, oh yeah, this is my life, this is my Ikigai. So to see him perform and hear him perform will be really interesting. So I want to offer these kind of experiences in Japan, away from the tourist spots and away from the big cities where we can really connect to some of these concepts I share, like yutori or ma, or be quite reflective on the seasons or explore Shintoism and Buddhism. And yeah, so I really want to move from theory to the experiential and share that with others. So that's a different dynamic. It's obviously smaller groups, and um, that might end up seeing me move back to Japan. You never know. So, and then I guess I hope that more people can embrace this idea that less is more and success is not. No, Ikigai's not about um, it's not it's not really about happiness. It's more about life satisfaction, growth. So I hope people don't, fall for the romantic version. I hope more people embrace, oh, okay, Ikigai is your whole life. And it's obviously the positive things, but it's also what you can learn from the hardships. And often you feel Ikigai most intensely when you overcome hardship. And preparing my first retreat, there's been a lot of hardship, a lot of frustration, confusion, stress, but
I bet. I bet.
it's caused me to grow. It's caused me to believe in myself. So I want people to experience that Ikigai, and it's not this romantic, the secret to longevity. It's this opportunity to look at life in a different lens and be more reflective and be more grateful and be more open to opportunity. And so it's almost like sort of living more by doing less, because you focus on what you value and you focus on what gives your life meaning. Yeah. So that's what I
So
hope people embrace that. Yeah.
that's awesome. How I actually understood my version of understanding what you shared, such a powerful actually. And just the first word that came into my mind, it was do. I do tea ceremony, sado,
Oh yeah,
aikido,
no, Michido. Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So you were talking about do,
The
like
way. Yeah, the path.
yeah, reflective, be open, and I love the
Mm,
you said about positive experience and also the hardship. And
yeah.
I agree with you so much. I agree with you,
Mm,
and I think you're right. When I felt, I actually failed my exam with my Tibetan medicine I studied for the last 3 years, and I'm still studying. But the final examination I failed, defeated. But I thought, I feel like I'm alive. I'm going to do better next time. So
there
it's
you
like
go.
a aliveness came.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I thought, this is my ikigai then. I said to my partner literally after received you were not successful. Damn it.
Mm,
But I thought myself, do I want to stay in this state? I'm not good enough. No, I'm going
mm.
to do better. Then I
There you go.
felt alive. So I
So
thought,
that's
oh, this
it.
is
And
my
it's
ikigai.
that reminds me of this is one of my favorite expressions, zassou damashi, like the tenacity of weeds, like the spirit of weeds. And so when you really care about something, you
Mm.
don't give up. So in the West, we think of weeds, weeds in your garden. We don't like them. And if I said, oh, Mayumi, you're a weed, that would be perceived very negatively. But if I say, oh, you're a weed, like you're not giving up, you're going to do this exam again, you're going to keep going until you pass because you have this diehard spirit. So yeah, that's so interesting. Like you can take what we perceive in the West as like, oh, weeds and they're annoying and I don't
Mm.
like them, to Japanese perspective, like, oh, weeds. We
I
almost,
actually love that. That's
yeah,
my key takeaway from you today. That's so damashi. And
yeah,
it's similar now what you were saying before, personal growth and motivation,
yeah, yeah.
life satisfaction, and you wanted to share with someone. Is for me was same for Tibetan medicine examination failure. I'm gonna do better so I
Mm.
can share with other people better.
Yes. Be a weed and be a weed and don't give up and then just keep growing and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah. So
awesome. Wow. If
yeah, but you
yeah.
do feel alive but it's also, I mean, that's also you kind of have to give credit to yourself because you're choosing that. So in a way, you're choosing this type of freedom. Like, okay, there's acceptance, which is also a common Japanese cultural value. Like, what is it,
Yep.
ukeireru or arugamama? Like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't change what's happened, and maybe I feel crap about it,
Yep.
but actually you've changed your mindset on it. So you've changed your feeling, and obviously you're going to action something
Yeah.
so that you will pass. So also your mindset's obviously quite resilient. Yeah. Mm.
Mm. Yeah,
So
resilience is a big
mm,
one for me. Yeah,
yeah,
as a
so that's
naturopath,
good.
I talk about that a lot.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, Nick, this one's been very, very insightful. I actually wrote it down for a bit.
Oh, did you? Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
I did that last one as well with the last two episodes. I don't know, just how I actually processing it. You know, people process differently. And it was so insightful, Nick. Thank you so much for your time, and especially your retreat starting on the 2nd of November. Am I right?
yeah, so I'm off to Japan in 10 days to get there early to prepare, and then yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's exciting. So
Yeah.
um,
So Nick, before wrapping up, is there anything you want to share? So you actually, I introduced yourself as an author of Ikigai-KAN. Did you want to talk about that, before wrapping up?
yeah, just this was it was kind of like the book I had to write because I never imagined I'd write a book, and it was kind of like what you said, I had to kind of, I mean, I had to convince myself like, oh, I can write a book despite struggling at school. And I had to change my mindset from, oh, I'm crap at writing, spelling, grammar, really painful memories of school, of failing tests, to, no, I care about this subject and I will write a book. And yeah, I had a disastrous start, but then I had this incredible support from my editor, Caitlin, and yeah, it was a very intimate process writing. I was almost writing to her in a way, and I trusted her feedback. And yeah, sometimes I'll check my Amazon sales and I think, wow, two or three people have bought the book today, and some people will send me messages, and I just think. All these people, it's obviously it's not a bestseller, but yeah, it's it's in the hands of quite a few people all over the world, and I never imagined I'd write a book. So if you're looking for I guess a evidence-based perspective, and a lot of it's pulled from the podcast, but my own reading and research, this goes, I guess, deeper into um, many perspectives, but really from I guess Japan rather than a romantic, um, you know, it's the secret to happiness kind of thing.
Mm.
I call it Japanese wisdom for fulfilling and meaningful life. So that's sort of the tagline. And this kanji character is kan, which means feeling, sense, perception, awareness. And that's what it really is about. It's what makes you feel that life is worth living. And it's often described as, like, some people will say, oh, ikigai is what gets you up in the morning. Yeah, which is true. But I think it's more, ikigai is what makes you want to get up tomorrow morning. So it's like, what excites you now to live life? Yeah, as you said, hasegawa, like this motivation to live.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
ikigai can even keep you awake because you might be so excited.
Maybe your retreat, maybe.
Yeah. So I've had a few sleepless nights because of both
Yeah,
excitement and
yeah,
both stress.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the podcast or my book would be a good place to start. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Mm.
How I perceive your book is like, again, going back to my Aikido teaching from my sensei, radio sensei, that I recently have a aha moment with him. I bloody ear to realize what's really his fundamental teaching was, geometric teaching.
Okay.
So
Geometric teaching.
he's because he's an engineer background, he thinks the movements geometrically.
I see.
Me
Okay.
as a holistic practitioner, naturopath, medicine practitioners, spiritualities and stuff like that, I tap into that direction. So we had a
Mm.
little bit of, and nothing wrong with that, but I just thought, what he's trying to say. I had a bit of, naughty question, a bit of noisy student. I asked him a many questions and he often said, are you again? What's this now? And then he's very patient. I'm
That's good.
grateful. But I don't know why all of a sudden I thought, his teaching is very geometrical, science. And so that's sort of how I perceive your book a bit,
Okay.
because very
Yeah, probably.
evidence-based and
Yeah.
research-based. Yeah.
Mm.
It's not like a woohoo. You basically spoke to the professors and all this on this field, also on research,
Mm.
collection of, and then into the one book. Maybe.
Yeah, that was kind of the goal, was to get as obviously introduce the work of Miko Kamiya and give her some recognition, but all these different perspectives and all these different themes of, life satisfaction, purpose, freedom, growth. And then really just at the end, I kind of share my opinion, which is kind of aligned with, I don't know, most of the book, but um but I mean, it's weird because we don't really have these kind of conversations, where I was talking about the news or what, just the shocking news of the week, and we don't stop and think, well, what matters to me, or what gives my life meaning, or what motivates me to live, or what do I really want to do with my time, or who's important to me. And ikigai is this kind of this great word that can instigate those conversations, because it's a, I don't know, it's an attractive sounding word. We don't have a word for it in English, and it's an unusual prompt, like, oh, what makes your life worth living? Um, and then it
Maybe
just
that's why
leads to this discussion. Yeah.
yeah, maybe
Mm.
that's why you're so fascinated about
Exactly. So,
it. Again, it's like a, door again to me, like a
yeah.
door, the
Mm.
way. Yeah,
The way, the
because
path.
that's
Yeah.
how I perceive with this tea ceremony and Aikido. It's a whole dimensional learning. You were saying that theoretical to the experiential. That's why you create the
Mm.
retreat, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you probably, this is only my opinion, okay? And it's probably recreating something dull in your life and sharing with others.
No, it's
Ikigai do, maybe.
maybe it is. It's become my life. It's like every day every day I'm either reading the word, hearing the word, or saying the word ikigai. So and yeah, I mean, I feel I've scratched the surface. I'm still learning so much. And
Yep,
within ikigai, there's all these sort of sub theories. So and then you learn new words like kokorozashi or yutori,
yeah.
and there's like, oh wow, what are these words? And then the learning never stops. So yeah, ikigai do. That's maybe could be a way
It
to
could
describe
be.
it. So the journey of the path of what makes life worth living.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
that's the continuant. It's never ending,
Mm,
just continuant.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then we
but
don't
I feel
have
very
to end
grateful,
it.
I've been very lucky, and I'm very grateful for your support and encouragement. And yeah,
Likewise. Yeah.
that makes my life feel worth living. So thank you.
Yeah, me too. Actually, the fascination of the Ikigai, and then you are one of the great resources I came across. And
Thank you.
I'm so grateful you are part of the group. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I'm sure some of people actually, few people in and out with their lives, and I'm sure, people are actually taking some great resource from our conversation.
I hope so.
And like I said before, if you ever your wife and decided to come over to Canada, just let me know.
Will do.
I'll
Will do.
check it out.
So
Yes,
probably
yes.
happen soon. So thank you. Thank you very
Awesome.
much,
Yeah,
Naomi.
yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for today, Nick-san. ありがとうございます. And
こちら
enjoy
こ
your
そ。
retreat. Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to end the retreat. Such a great, insightful chat. Thank you, everyone, and you're welcome to comment in this post or underneath of the live, or connect with Nick, or maybe check out his resources. He offer great content. That's 100%.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.